everybody, this is Saber with another Guild Wars 2 update. It is May 13th, 2010, update number 6. Yesterday, Colin, I'm not sure which, I'm sorry, Johanson, lead content designer of Guild Wars 2, wrote a blog up on the Guild Wars 2 website about the event system for Guild Wars 2. The main gist of the information that was given was out with the old and in with the new. That is to say that ArenaNet wants to get rid of the old style of questing and MMO playing and bring in a new flavor of in the moment and team-oriented missions and quests. So here are the points that we got from the interview that ANET is saying that it's bad with MMOs today. First, Johanson wanted to set the mood that the old system of walking up to NPCs for a wall of text and to go on a quest to get another wall of text is old and outdated. In other words, systems like it's in currently in the Guild Wars 1 game is old and needs to be totally revamped and gotten rid of. The next thing that he went on further to say that quests such as killing 10 ogres in a field is like picking daisies. Tell us how you really feel about that. And lastly, the nasty problem with MMOs, as ANET put it, was wanting to address the kill stealing and the waiting lines. Major problem with MMOs that generally pushes players against each other instead of working with each other. Because they're competing to try to get further into the game as opposed to helping each other get further in the game. So basically, what Johanson wanted to get a point across is that the current world of MMOs, like Guild Wars 1, like WoW, like Perfect World, are doing, or what are doing right now, is going to be done away with as much as possible and changed into a more dynamic and more audible system in Guild Wars 2. Also, they want to create a living and breathing world that changes on depending on what the players do, which I'll get to later. But like I said, out with the old and in with the new. But what exactly is new? Well, here are some notes about what is changing. In with the new. First off, all players that fully participate in an event are rewarded for doing so. So players that help either kill a monster or blow up an enemy catapult will be credited for doing so. By doing this will help create better player gamesmanship and better teams. One thing Johanson noted in an interview, and I quote, our entire studio has experienced countless moments where we've been drawn together to parts of the map to do events and felt a strong bond with other players. A truly dynamically created sense of community born out of this system. End quote. So what ANET is trying to do is they're trying not to push players away from each other in order to complete these quests like I mentioned, but actually bring them together and help each other with these quests because everybody's going to get credit for doing so. So with that, adds to this that the more players that helps with the event, the more enemies that will spawn. Guild Wars 2 is going to have a dynamic scaling system that when players' levels and numbers go up, so will the difficulty of the task. So enemies will hit harder and be higher in numbers as the players group more and more together and increase their levels higher and higher. So there's going to be a definite shift of balancing the game that's going to automatically trigger as characters progress through the game and players team up and go to different areas of the maps of the world. The last area of note is that what players do in the world will impact everyone. What that means is that depending on whether or not players complete a quest, the event will grow further and snowball into other events. The best example was a story that he told about a dredge attack. The world changes depending on what players do and whether or not they're successful in completing a quest, fail at a quest, or just plain ignore it altogether. So in this case of the dredge attack, and I quote about completed, if the players completed it, and I quote, if an enemy dredge army is marching out of their main base, players will be asked to mobilize their allies to help destroy the army. If the dredge army is defeated, other events will coincide out from there. Players will be able to battle their way inside the dredge base, face off against the commander, rescue captured friendly troops being held in dredge prisons, and even hold the captured base while fighting waves of dredge who arrive deep under the ground to try to take back their home. End quote. So even though players successfully defeated the army and take over their base, they will still need to upkeep the stronghold once in a while and defend against other dredge army people that might come back in and take it back over. But what happens if players fail or just ignore the event altogether? Well, the situation can actually worsen. The alternate example of this attack, if players fail or ignore this, and I quote again, the Dredge Army will establish a fort in friendly player territory. From there, the Dredge will send shipments of troops and supplies to and from the fort and the main base while building up walls and turrets and siege engines to help defend it. Enemy Dredge forces will then begin to move out from their newly established fort to attack friendly player locations in the area, sending snipers out into the hills, sending assault team forces to capture friendly player villages, and trying to smash down friendly fortifications and massive dredge walkers. End quote. So as you can see, that by ignoring the situation or failing the situation, that the event actually got worse. So the new thing in this MMO that Guild Wars 2 is going to try to do is that if players fail or ignore events, the quest just doesn't go away. You can't just click abandon and you can forget about it. So when the quest moves on without the players, it's going to snowball into a bigger and bigger deal to deal with. And it's going to affect everybody in the world, and it's going to be a big problem. And this is what the living and breathing environment that Johanson was actually talking about. And he also says there's actually going to be more to come and more examples to go by for this living and breathing world that players will be walking around and dealing with. The last little bits of info I want to go over is that events will trigger with an internal timer that players actually don't really see. So players won't actually know when some of the events will occur. So you could actually be walking around through town and a building blows up right next to you because the dragon shot a fireball at it. So you'll have townspeople running around screaming and guardsmen asking for your help to defend the town verbally. So there's not going to be any question marks or anything like that to say, hey, there's a dragon here, go fight it, blah 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 blah. No, they're actually going to be more dynamic system of people running around screaming and that you have to jump in and try to help the situation. There actually is also going to be in-game content like dungeons and high-level raid areas that are going to be instant and repeatable. This is similar to Underworld and Fissure of War of Guild Wars 1. Along with this, there'll be mini games and, of course, PvP, player versus player. This is your guild versus guild area. So there will be end-of-game content available for you that is instant. So if there's nothing going on in the world that interests you, there will be other instance areas that you and other players can team up and actually go into together to farm and like that. Lastly, the next major news that will come from ANET for Guild Wars 2 will come from Ree Sosby, and that is the lead. She's the lead world designer, and she'll be discussing the personal story system, which, as Johanson said, will be a more dynamic RPG part of the MMO RPG. So they're going to try to make it even more dynamic for your actual personal story in Guild Wars 2. This will do it for this edition of Guild Wars 2 Update Series. I will also be on the lookout for any profession releases that might happen, and then, like I said, I'm now going to be in HD and be able to pull the Flash media files off the ANET website so I can show you a full video of some of the new professions they're going to be releasing. And as always, I am Saberwolf. Thank you, and have a good day.